Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We're so excited for you guys to be here today in this shortened week as we focus on recognition. We are going to wait just a couple minutes as folks start trickling in. We had some great registration for today, so we're super excited for all of you that are going to join us live. Hopefully we'll have some great interaction and suggestions for you around recognition. But then also for all of you that are watching this back or rewatching it, sharing with your team, thank you for being here today as well. So we'll get going, but I think the first off, because we are talking about recognition, Carol, I hope everyone had a great holiday weekend here in the States. For those of you that did have to work on Monday because of the industry or the role that you're in, thank you for putting in that days of work. Thank you to anyone else that may be covered for their team so that they could be out rejuvenating, getting their well-being day in. Just don't forget to take your well-being day this week or maybe next week or whatever works for you. So thanks for that covering, and hopefully everyone had a great holiday weekend. As folks are coming in, we appreciate you being here. Just a couple updates. We'll get started here in just a moment, but this is being recorded. So whether you are here or maybe you just registered and watching the playback, you'll get a playback link as well as the copy of the deck. So definitely an opportunity to start your recognition strategy, to upscale it, maybe with some of the items here, and to use in your organization. We are going to have some couple of interactions, so don't forget that chat box down there to fill in when we get those questions going, or we do have the Q&A at the bottom. And so please go ahead. If you have any questions throughout, we'll have time at the end to answer those as well. And it looks like Robert Moore says, hello, Carol, or I should say, hi, Carol. So yeah, excited to hopefully have some of our team on, shout out to our leaders, Don and Liz, for supporting us in the time that we had to put in to get together, which was always super fun as I worked with Carol, to have this presentation today. So yeah. Just one more minute, but other than that, again, very interactive. Don't forget, you'll get a recording of this as well as the deck to share with your team or just to rewatch. And I think we'll kind of get going.
Okay.
And so I'll start. My name is Bree Mouton. Bree like the cheese, so easy to remember. And Mouton like crouton, right? I get a lot of mountain, but crouton like Mouton. I am a customer success manager here at Tiny Pulse by Limeade. I've actually been part of the Tiny Pulse team for over a year and a half now. And I joined from the hospitality, hotels, and destination sales in particular, where recognition is really ingrained in our culture. So I'm excited to talk about this topic with you guys today. I actually joined our customer success team about 3 months ago, helping teams implement not only our engagement solution, but our recognition tools, Cheers for Peers. Outside of work, I'm watching movies, watching sports, go Buffaloes. I love to travel and collect postcards and love all things green. So my partner today is Carol in recognition, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Yeah, thank you, Bree. Yeah, my name is Carol Stanley. I'm the Employee Experience Program Manager here at Limeade. I've been with Limeade about 7.5 years now, and I've had the joy of working with Tiny Pulse and running our internal program, which we call Team Limeade. And Bree and I get to work together on the Social Connection Champion team, and I'm overjoyed to be here to talk to you about achieving true recognition. A little bit about me outside of work. When you don't see me at work, you'll likely see me outside, camping and performing in community theater. And sometimes I get to do all three because I get to camp and perform at an outdoor theater. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me. Bree, do you want to talk about what we're going to talk about today?
Yes, thanks, Carol. I can't wait to make it up to your area and see some of your production. So thank you. All right, so our agenda today, what we're not going to talk about is kind of what this meme is saying, right? So often it's easy to overlook recognition as a whole. So here we have the employee raising their hand for help. We see the manager coming in thinking, great, they're going to give us support or recognition. And instead, we get the high five and a pizza party, right? Leaving the employee then kind of stuck of what's going on? I'm not being heard. What am I being supported with? So a lot of us can relate to this, right? And we know that when we're not receiving recognition, it can really impact your morale. It can impact your productivity, obviously to connection with other coworkers. So we want to focus on being more impactful with our connections with people and understanding the right way to support, to guide, and to give recognition so that they can be productive, happier, and healthier employees. So today we're going to focus on recognition in the workplace on 3 different levels so we can get a little bit more granular, how to understand your team, really be intentful behind some of this recognition, and then of course, how to take action. So we'll get started, but first, a little bit of data to review. All right, so you're going to see a poll come up with this question: how much would employee recognition improve social and culture connection? So take just a moment to go ahead and answer that for us. And as you read through those options, it's important to note that recognition improves that feeling of connection, right? We know this study was done by some of our people scientists of over 500 employees, and it was part of a webinar that we hosted earlier this year, that 88.2% of employees identified or indicated, recognition would be beneficial to increasing social and culture connection. In addition, we know that when well-communicated recognition can have positive effects beyond making employees feel recognized in the moment, making them feel more connected, collaborative, and engaged with the organization in the long term. Now, I find this so insightful. What we'll go ahead and do is we'll pull up the results here, as well as pull up the results of the poll to say how we aligned here on the call with what we found in this sample. So right now we're seeing that, a great deal feel that employee recognition is really important to improve the connection. We love to see that. Carol, can you pull up the results from the larger poll?
Yeah.
And I think we see some alignment here, right? That, we're aligning with that 82% and what we see how important that is. But now it's really important to take that into action, right? One of the things to notice specifically on here too is that 14.4%, that great deal, which is what you guys, I think we're a little bit higher at around 49%, just shows that the impact that this can have. Carol, any thoughts that you have for this one in particular before we move forward?
No, I think we'll get into greater detail about how we can create that social and cultural connection later in the presentation.
Great. Additionally, some research that came out a while back by Brunn and Douglas, actually printed in the International Journal of Human Resource Management, still holds true today. And it's interesting that recognition really stems from 2 different resources, right? Kind of that everyday recognition that we're super familiar with, right? Acknowledgement of a job well done, achieving a goal, completing a task. Some of the other underlying recognition that comes through is a lot harder to quantify or define or even sometimes acknowledge, right, within a team. And so what this is talking about is the trust in employee skills. And I found this so insightful when our people scientists reviewed this, was that perhaps there's someone on your team that is showing some great leadership skills or some great knowledge within a specific topic. And perhaps acknowledging those elements within them and asking them to lead a project, asking them to lead a webinar, right? We want to shout out to our marketing team for that. We're both very passionate about recognition. It is part of our culture here at Tiny Pulse and Limeade. We do it every day. And so being recognized in those soft skills too can have such an impact. So it doesn't always have to be so large, and that's kind of what we'll get into a little bit more, finding that space of when to give recognition and what that looks like. Carol, anything here? What are your thoughts?
No, I completely agree that, recognition should be, it doesn't have to be a huge, big to do. It can be just as simple as a small note or a small just interaction with employees, because it can have huge ripple impacts on everybody. So yeah.
Yeah, so it becomes kind of contagious, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, awesome. Okay. In this slide, we don't want to focus a whole lot of time on, because recognition shouldn't be negative, but it's important to notice what this is saying, because it just means that we have a lot of work still to do. So when we ask, to what extent have you experienced a lack of work at communication, we found that 66.4% of employees reported this. I mean, that's a lot of our staff, 2/3 of our staff lacking, or at least not seeing it being done regularly. And I think, looking at this, something to note is it doesn't always have to be received. It has to be seen within the culture, right? It has to be seen from the management down, from the peers up. And I think that's really what we can have an impact. And I think similar to communication, we know when we're lacking in some of these important cultural categories that impact to people's participation, collaboration, productivity, retention, all kind of filter back. And the one thing I'll call out here is that a great deal at 14.03%. These could be very important critical roles, top performers, seasoned team members. This still indicates that we have a lot of work to do around employee recognition. But the fun thing is it can ever be changing, growing, evolving. It can be by organization or by team. Really empowering everyone to have impact in this is where we're going to see this grow. So we're excited now to jump into some of our main topics, and we're going to have Carol take it away from here.
Yeah, thank you, Bree. Thank you for a great foundation of the data, like the science behind all of the things we're going to talk about. So I'm going to talk about recognition in the workplace, and we're going to break it into some bite-sized chunks. We're going to talk about organizational, cultural, and personal recognition. We're going to kind of go from an outside-in perspective and give you some ideas of how you can do recognition in the workplace. There's no one right way to do recognition, but these are just a few tips. And most of the things we mentioned are digital because we live in this hybrid digital age. But a lot of these things can be adapted if you have an on-site recognition program in your workplace. But we wanted to, give the best scope to everybody. So let's touch on the first one, which is organizational appreciation. So at the organizational level, there are lots of ways to help you connect your employees. At Limeade, we do a few things where we appreciate our employees at the organizational level. We have quarterly value awards. That's that first picture, Own It. We are very intentional about our values here at Limeade. And so we have a nomination process that allows other Limeates to nominate other Limeates, and a nomination committee who decides on the winners. We always are sure to announce some of our customer launches when we launch a brand new customer. And then we also celebrate promotions within the company. So like in this example, somebody being promoted to senior product support specialist. And then product and tech updates. We have the ability to like an internal feed so that we can communicate these things. But you can always communicate these things in company meetings or in other ways that newsletters, all other ways that you can communicate with your employees. You can also do tangible items like awards, stock options, raises for your employees. So those are just some examples of the organizational appreciation level. The next level is cultural appreciation. So like I said earlier, Limeade really is very intentional about their values. So putting their values into the things that we have at Limeade. So like our recognition involves our values. We use a thing called Cheers for Peers through the Tiny Pulse product, and you're able to select a value or one or two or as many values that the person exemplifies when you're giving them a cheer for peer. And that's shown here in the right-hand side. But we also like to have fun when we do this sort of thing. So rather than just giving text to employees, we share gifts with our coworkers when we're, showing our recognition for each other, make it fun. You want to lean into the collective uniqueness of your team and think about ways that to make it fun, and the growth and the solution solving that your people are doing, and really elevating that. Some other tangible items would be prizes, swag items, or small delights. We'll touch later on small delights, but that's just targeted, personalized rewards for your employees. Bree, did you want to add anything here?
Yeah, no, Carol, I love all this. It like makes my heart start beating because it's so exciting. I think really seeing organizations lean into their core values now. I was in hospitality for over 20 years, and it was always know your mission, know your vision, right? Those were the focus because we wanted to live those. And I love seeing this kind of culture shift and really making it more definable into core values, right? Usually 1 or 2 words, easy to remember, easy to recognize and live. So I think really pairing recognition to those can have such a big impact. One of ours I love is we're a team. And it's so easy to live that value because of our connection, how we're celebrating the little things or the big things, makes me remember that, hey, that's an important value that's important to me as well. And then I think as I'm looking at this is don't dismiss the people that like to give recognition, that makes their heart happy. It's not always about receiving the recognition. It's kind of like birthdays or Christmas or any other holidays. It fills people with joy to also recognize others. And so I think having very different levels like this and empowering the team again to send their own makes us happy too. I get just a kick at finding the gifs and sending to someone because I know how to make them feel. It makes me feel really good too.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. And yeah, your recognition should not always just come from the top. It could come from everyone. I saw a quick question in the Q&A asking what is swag, and I just wanted to touch on that. Swag is just company branded items is what we would call that. So like I have like a Limeade jacket and Limeade socks and all sorts of stuff, but it could just be, it's just another version of prizes. So yeah. All right. Next type of appreciation is personal. Too often we forget to recognize our personal wins. It's important to recognize others, but it's also important to recognize yourself. Take that time for mindfulness, take that time for relaxation, go get up and move. We are not meant to stare at a screen all day. Take that PTO. We have a place to share these, like I said before, in our feed, and we appreciate ourselves and others in our products so that we can share and inspire others to take care of themselves. So some examples would be focusing on your health. So like reminders to take water, drink water, take care of your family, get out there. We just ran a thing called Magic Movement Moments where we asked folks to submit pictures of those perfectly timed pictures. And it was a really great thing. Bree and I worked together on it, and it was just really a really fun way to connect with everybody and appreciate each other for some of the fun things that we do over the summer. So yeah, Bree, did you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the toughest ones and ones that can be encouraged the most because it's really hard to kind of toot our own horn, right? To say, hey, this was a goal I set, this is what I accomplished, whether professional or personal, right? I know a goal for mine and my family's this year is we want to purchase a camper van, right? So what are activities that are going to lead up to that? And if I can communicate that with my leader, how important that is, that's something that I can track as well, right? Through my different goals and my savings and things financially, right? That's part of the elements that we need to work on. And what I love too is, if you guys are doing one-on-one meetings, it's a great opportunity to really sit with that individual and ask them, hey, what are you proud of? In our one-on-ones, that's one of our questions. What are you proud of this week? Especially in a hybrid, in a remote environment, a lot of what you're doing is going unseen, right? When you're in a collective office, when something awesome happens, and hey, I've been in sales for many years, we ring that bell, we shout out, right? And we're a little bit more animated than some teams, but it doesn't mean that people don't want to celebrate a hard project that they just worked through. We know tech teams, engineering teams, development teams are working really behind the scenes to work out different scenarios for clients, right? Power outages, when those go out, think about those call centers that are getting hammered with things, right? To know that they celebrated, I think we've got to open up those channels and make it okay to talk about the wins we've had so that it can then be shared up. So just don't forget on that personal level, give that in, talk about it and make sure that we strengthen from that way as well.
Yeah, definitely. All right. And quick animation. These are just some other ways we show personal appreciation. And all right, next, let's talk a little bit about understanding your team and how it's important to understand your team and to achieve those levels of recognition. All right, so think about the public and private recognition, finding different ways to show recognition and gratitude. You may have some people on your team that absolutely hate being called out in a team meeting or a company meeting, and they don't want to be recognized publicly. But that does not mean you should not recognize them. That means that you need to vary your recognition program, finding ways to recognize people the way they like to be recognized. When I met my new manager, one of the first questions she asked me was, how do you like to be recognized? And I immediately had to pause a second going, oh gosh, I never thought about that. But for me, I don't have a problem with public recognition. So I said, I don't mind if you call it out in a team meeting. In fact, I like it better than just a little private recognition, so it's really important to find what works best for your team. And then finding ways to recognize the big things and the small things. We were talking about, recognizing the big sales and the big customer launches, but sometimes it's, you just spent an hour on this really tough presentation or on this really tough customer call. I saw you, I saw how you showed up, and I really appreciate you. So finding ways to do that, but also finding ways to recognize with intention that's genuine, and that it's, don't always just recognize new things, recognize hard work and being stable. And then small delights. Earlier I touched on small delights, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in that HRIS systems. We use ADP. In the past, we've used Zenefits. They have a way to capture employees' preferences. And we use that to give employees a short questionnaire of their likes and dislikes, as well as to answer a few questions. And these questions are then visible to the manager. So when the manager, we actually give managers a small delight budget so that they can recognize their employees. When the manager's looking for something, they don't have to go to the employee and ask them. They can reference this list and add stuff like your favorite colors, your favorite flowers, your favorite coffee shops. I don't drink coffee, so I put that in there. I don't really like coffee. I really like smoothies. Switch it up so that if your employer is going to get you a gift card or something, they're going to get you something that matters most to you. So using your systems to gather those preferences, as well as you can also in your one-on-ones talk to your employees and make private notes to yourself as a manager on the things that your employees like. I had an employee yesterday tell me that they're in accounting and they really like 10 keys and they like calculators and all those sorts of things. And many weeks later, her manager got her a fun calculator, and she was like, how did you know? And it was because she had mentioned it once in a meeting, and he noted it, and she was like, it just felt really good. And I thought that was a really great recognition from a manager. And then that also gets at the human thing, get to the human side of recognition. Recognition has a huge impact. The intent behind it is just as important as the act. Your recognition should be effortless. It shouldn't be hard. If you're thinking too hard about it, it's not working. Like it should be really simple. There should be no strings behind it. It should be given freely, but it should also be meaningful for your employees. So, Bree, did you want to add anything on this?
Yeah, I love this. I think too, the important thing that we're seeing a lot, and I think it's the day and age that we are, maybe it's the demographics, but people are really coming to work as their whole self, right? I feel like in my past, I've come to work and I've been one person and I've presented that way and shared things. And then when I'm out with friends, right, I kind of present and share things differently. And that, in an essence, could make it hard to fully understand your team and understand what truly is impactful and intentional to them. And nowadays, we're seeing people come being authentically themselves. And I think we need to lean into that, just like you said. Be specific, be meaningful behind it. Even as you said, thanks for your help, it's still impactful. People like to hear that, right? But if you said, hey, thanks for your help today, actually allowed me more time to work on my marketing material to get it out to the team faster. Wow, it really put more intent behind that and what you were able to give to that person with how you helped. So yeah, this kind of makes me excited. I also kind of goes back to that gift giving, right? When you know that it has the right intent behind it, the why, it can have a more lasting impression on that individual.
Exactly. Yeah. And so earlier I mentioned a story about an employee, but we would love to hear some of your stories about recognition. So in the chat, we were wondering if you could share so think back to your time as an employee and maybe your current role or a previous role, a recognition that you got and how it was really impactful for you. So we'll give everyone a few moments to type stuff in the chat, and we'll share a few of these. And I know Bree and I both have stories to share too. So I'll give everyone a second.
Oh, and it looks like I see chat is disabled. So we got our great marketing team on the back end. If you can go ahead and make sure that is up and running. Thank you all for sending those in.
Keep thinking on those.
Yep. While those are coming in, Carol, do you have an instance that was very impactful?
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I had a manager who knew that I really loved theater. I mentioned that earlier. I love performing in theater. I love seeing theater, listening to theater, like all things theater. And my manager was able to get me a gift card to go see local theater. And I thought that was just like really, really wonderful. I did get to see Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, which is a wonderful musical, by the way. But it was impactful for me because I knew my manager really knew what I liked and picked something that meant something more to me than just a Starbucks gift card. Like I mentioned before, I don't drink coffee. I do, it's not that I don't occasionally drink it, but it's not like a daily thing for me. And it just felt like my manager was really listening to me. So Bree, do you want to share your story?
Yeah, I love that. One, I think back to, being in hospitality for as long as I had, I actually thought about the beginning of my journey, coming from the front desk and was moving into my first manager role. And it was pretty big. I knew I would love it, job descriptions and being at that hotel, I thought, I can do this. This speaks to my heart. But I just didn't know if I was ready. And I remember speaking with the director of sales, really understanding the role. And I did go ahead and apply for it. And I remember sitting in the general manager's office and he was talking to me, kind of warming me up, keeping me on the line with, what is it going to be? And he looked over my shoulder and I had to turn around and I saw the director of sales speaking in. She was excited to see what I was going to say. So he invited her in and they just said, we have a lot of confidence in you, in what you're going to do in this role. You bring a lot of great skills, your attention to detail, your communication, making everybody feel part of that conversation. We think you'd be really great with the clients. And based on that, I was going to say yes anyway, but it just made me feel like, wow, okay, a little bit more confidence, right? It helped boost that. And I think this goes back to some of the topics we talked about earlier, that it doesn't always have to be something big or something, gift giving, but that recognition of saying like, hey, we see it in you. We believe in you. We think you would do good at this. That was very impactful for me moving forward.
Yeah. Oh, exactly. Like, I think, when you mentioned that, I immediately, like, my brain went to the different love languages, and I immediately thought of words of affirmation. And of course, there's, gifts, and there's acts of service. But like, that's like, and I know love is sometimes a word that's pretty taboo in the workplace. Like, love to me equals care, and that manager really cared about you to give you those words of affirmation to help you feel supported. And that was huge. And it shows that it doesn't have to be an actual tangible item. It could just be a kind word. So let's see. We're checking with our technical teams. Oh, I see somebody got something in the chat. So it looks like the chat is open. Does anybody have any recognition they wanted to share? Let's see. Thank you, Barbara. Be interested with big and new projects. Give everyone a second here. It's still, some people is shown as disabled. Oh no. Let's see. Oh my gosh, Kim, this is wonderful. It said, my boss recently got me a hat that said mama on it. She knows we're about to adopt our first child, and the process can be long and can fall through. But her note said, I believe this will be your last birthday without this title after your name. It was so meaningful. Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah. Oh.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
That just makes me, I want to come give you both a hug. Like, that's amazing. What a journey you've been on.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Taking a camping trip in basket. Ah.
And hopefully you guys can see these comments too coming through. So, and I love this, Logan, not from your employer, but you got a thank you card from a parent of a student that you helped in a crisis, right? I think that's where we need to really start seeing this element of gratitude be all over. Because if we can practice it more in our daily life, it becomes more habitual, and it becomes easier to give and to see and be able to recognize in all the instances around us. So that's just amazing too. I think I saw a chat in here about someone having like a little snack area where people can come get treats out of, maybe. Something, my mom, she keeps kisses on her desk, little bit of chocolate, and everyone knows that it's there, but it's actually her way to connect with people. They'll come in, she can ask them a little bit about them. How's work today? How's the family? It's just a really nice icebreaker. So, don't forget that some of those too, they needed a little sweet tooth, and you fulfilled that for them. So that's awesome.
Yeah. Wonderful stories coming into the chat. I could spend all day staring at them.
Yeah. We'll definitely read through these. If any of these have great highlights, again, as we talked about with the presentation, we've got some bonus slides. We'd love to be able to share some of these out with you guys as well, so we can keep the conversation.
Yep. All right. So like I mentioned before, care in the workplace is super important. And why should we care about all of this thing? So Limeade did a study on the science of care. And we learned that listening to your employees and having a recognition and valuing your employees, having a recognition program is really great to improving your bottom line. Employees are more likely to be engaged in their work. They're less likely to suffer from burnout. They're more likely to feel included in their work. They're more likely to stay at their company for 3 or more years, and they're more likely to recommend their company as a great place to work. Now, I'm not saying that your recognition program is the only thing driving these things, because that's not what the science of care found out. But this is an arm of your caring that you can show for your employees, and look at all the great things that can come from that. And you can do this through different things, through cheers, awards, all the different things that we pointed out earlier. But the next thing that we want to talk about is, how do you do that? How do you take action on those things? So I'm going to turn it over to Bree, and she's going to talk about how you go about taking that action.
Yeah, awesome. So this is really where we hope you're going to have some great takeaways, right? So, and it's going to be a process, right? When, how, what does that look like? And we hopefully this next slide will be a little bit more into how to, not only for you to perhaps set up a structure for your team. A lot of time this is going to, we assume that this falls on our HR and people team, and it may in your organization. But from there, it's also important to understand the needs of each team as well as the organization overall. So as we dive down into that, we're hoping that we can just simplify the process a little bit. Whether you do have a recognition program in place, maybe this is an opportunity to tweak it just a little bit, maybe upscale it, or start to put one in place for you and your team. So the first one is place. Where does this recognition happen? And if you recall, we've got organization, culture, or the personal level. At that organizational level, it's going to be very broad and big. Newsletters, social feeds, definitely can be more of that formal submission, right? Goals achieved, awards, best place to work, right? Community involvement. As we go down into that culture, a little bit more team meetings or huddles. You're seeing this be a little bit more informal, maybe spur of the moment. Here on our customer success team, we open every meeting with, hey, what's good news to share? Who do you want to show gratitude to? And it just gives us an opportunity to be in the moment and recognize our team. And then down on that personal level, definitely one-on-one meetings and that peer-to-peer. That's one area where we think can get a lot more focus in empowering people to be able to recognize others. This is where that micro recognition comes in, right? The day-to-day stuff. And this is where it really starts to become a part of your culture.
Yeah. And the second one is personal, making it personal. We've said that many times today, making sure it's the way the person likes to be recognized. And then the third one is making it productive. Make sure it's something others want to hear about and would be interested to know. Make it aspirational, like point out the amazing things that some of your employees are doing. And just making it something that others want to hear about. I always want to hear about some of the great things that our employees are doing day in and day out.
Yeah, Carol, I love that. I think too, when it comes to productive, I use our cheers feed a lot as like a news feed to figure out, hey, what are teams working on? What are they celebrating? Because I don't know. It's hard to keep up with all of that stuff, right? So just know that the way that people will use that can be very different. And which leads us into making it prompt, right? The win matters. Time is of the essence. And we know Carol mentioned that if we take too much time, which tends to happen a lot, we're doing things at the end of a quarter or the end of the year, which are just fine. We want to keep that, right? Recognition is a layering effect. So while those are important, make sure that you're making it often and frequent. It is creating that habit. So build it in, some immediate things you can do right now is build it into team meetings. Put it as an agenda item and talk about it. It's a great way to start a meeting. Sometimes you have that dead space where people are coming in, no one really knows what to say. Kick it off with let's showing some gratitude. Or, choosing a team member to celebrate that week and telling everybody why that you picked them. And then don't forget to share this out with leaders and other teams, right? It's very easy for us to then get caught in just our team. So make sure you're being prompt with sharing that at multiple levels as well. And then finally, making it perpetual. So you need to build this culture. I know we have a question that came in and we'll talk about this. We don't want it to be a chore, right? We want it to be instilled, and that just takes time. But we need to make sure we're doing it all the time. Whether it is a weekly thing where you're setting a reminder, it's okay to put some competition around it, right? We challenge, managers here to go ahead and make sure that you're sending out those cheers with one-on-ones. Who else do we need to recognize so that we're layering that effect in? And then celebrate that with some additional cheers. But the more you start doing it, it does become that waterfall effect. You receive one, you want to send one. Someone receives one, they want to send one. So just know it takes time, but it also has to be supported, right, in any type of that recognition.
Yeah, exactly. You were mentioning like calling out, like doing things promptly, but also just doing it all the time. In a previous team, I worked in a customer care setting, and we would review end user comments in the meeting and just go through. I would go and pick a good rating from every single person and bring that to the meeting so that everybody could know all the amazing things that our customer care agents were doing. And it was like super impactful. And then like I think one week I was behind and didn't have it ready, and everyone was like, wait, we want to do the rate, like we want to hear everyone's comments. And so it's really great that it becomes just part of your DNA. So
yeah, I love that. It becomes part of that schedule, right? And when it's not there, you're like, wait, we missed something. Like,
yeah.
What do we need to do? That's so cool to hear. I love that. And you're right. It's not something you have to create, right? Some things are already out there in your organization. Just use them and re-communicate them. That can be such a simple step to do.
Yeah. All right.
All right. As we're kind of winding down here, we have a couple quick more questions. And now that we know that the chat is going, we want to know, how do you recognize your peers? This is a good one, right? A lot of what we've talked about today is empowering the rest of your team. That's a really important part of recognition, and sometimes can be lacking or not supportive. So start putting those in so that we can see different ways that you are recognizing your peers as well. And we'll read some of those. So, oh, Paya, great. Using badges in teams. I love that idea. And Kira will know this, as she mentioned, we talked about being on our Limeade Champions team. We have a badge for our signature line. And I love being able to represent, the social connection that we're a part of, and being able to tag that. So yeah, coming up with different levels once you've reached things is always a great way for recognition, right? Setting some of those standards around there. Dedicated Slack shout out. I think many of us are on Slack or Teams. Setting up specific channels around recognition, super easy to do, right? And it creates that waterfall effect. Carol, which ones are you seeing that you like?
I love the wins channels and having ways. I love the different names that folks have, the Good News Gazette, that's really fun. And just shout outs, like love having ways that everybody can see the cheers. And we also have that at Limeade, where we can see the cheers feed and we can see everybody's cheers for each other. And so it's super great.
Yeah. Some of these handwritten cards, oh, I love those. I still send out a lot of handwritten cards, and the funny thing with mail now is you don't know when they get it, right? I mentioned I collect postcards in the beginning, and I do ask friends and family, and so if anyone out there's traveling and you want to be added to my collection, sometimes the postcard takes a long time to show up, and when it does, it brings me joy. I get to live that experience with them, and then also follow up with them, right, and kind of hear how that was. So still handwritten things, we love seeing that for sure. And I'm a big fan of the decorating desk, man. Woo! I think when you're back in the office, the smile, the impact of, like you said, those small delights of what you can bring in and individuals' personalities, and then you're up doing yourself, right? You're like, ooh, whose desk is next? What are we going to do? And can really be a team effort. So I love that. Oh, no. Well, we'll read that comment later. Frosty cards at Wendy's. Has anyone tried the new Wendy's flavor?
What? There's a new flavor?
There is. Or maybe they retired a flavor.
Okay.
I might be getting confused.
Oh, Fortune Cookie says how fortunate we are to have them. Oh, that's sweet. So many amazing.
Oh, see? Strawberry. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Strawberry is amazing. Thank you, Heather. We'll have to try that new Frosty flavor for sure.
Yes.
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love all these.
Okay. Shall we?
Yes.
keep it coming if you have great ideas, but we'll just keep on rolling here.
And so now we're going to kind of jump into Q&A, have several minutes here. If anything, we'll give the gift of time, but we do have some questions. So drop those in the question box and we'll answer those. Again, we just want to give a big shout out to our marketing team, Allie and Mock. We thank you for your support, your help in guiding us for this webinar today. Obviously, inviting all of you to be here, your time and energy. We see you guys, we appreciate you guys, and we're excited. Hopefully follow up with us. Let us know what impact you have put into place. What are some of those stories, right? We're a community here, and one great idea that you're having can spur someone else's. We can build on it. We want to hear your successes too. So please do connect with Carol and I so that we can stay in touch, and drop those notes in here and those questions. We do have a couple that we'll start going through. So Emma asks, is Own It a recognition platform? We're looking for ways for employees to nominate others on doing work well. Wondering if there's a way to monitor this through a platform easily. I might be able to take this one, but Carol, what are your insights?
Yeah, I mean, we do Own It is just one of our values that we are focusing on. But we do have the ability in our Limeade product to submit nominations and not anonymously, but up to one central location. But I believe there's also ways that this can be accomplished in TinyPulse. Bree, do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I think I'm going to follow up. Own It is one of the value tags. And then here at TinyPulse, we have Cheers for Peers, which is a standalone product that allows you to do just this. You can add your value tags in there. You have an opportunity to do monetary gift cards, but it's open to the whole organization. It can integrate with Slack or Teams. It does put that structure around a more formal, accessible, easy to do process for recognition. Where you can layer in some different things. So yeah, definitely reach out. We can talk about that more and see what options are there. But yeah, if you're looking for something kind of on the tech side, system side, that's always an option. Let's see. This is a great one, which I think we touched on briefly, Kara, but we have heard from some, this is from an anonymous attendee, thank you. We have heard from some of our managers that they feel like it's a chore or feeling like they have to post on a platform to show appreciation seems insincere. How would you suggest we position the recognition program so that they feel empowered to do without feeling like it's mandatory?
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. Like we touched on the intent before and how it's really important that it should be effortless. But it shouldn't feel like a chore. It should feel good. There's been so many studies on how helping others or recognizing others makes you feel better, like makes you feel good inside. And so like, I think highlighting some of that data to people, but also just modeling it. Like, yes, sometimes leaders may need to model it at first, but before you know it, everybody is doing it and it doesn't feel insincere. It feels genuine. And then I guess just like check your intention when you're doing this. Like, are you like you should be giving compliments freely. I don't know. It's kind of a hard one to answer. Like, Bree, do you have any ideas around how you could position it?
I would probably echo with you. Authenticity came to mind right away. If it's not going to be authentic, then there's no reason to do it, right? Here on our team, we have an additional layer of recognition at the end of every month. We used to kind of do a spin wheel, right? And it would land on people that had given cheers. And the more you gave, the bigger your pie. So your higher chance of getting additional recognition and a gift card. And it came up pretty often with, are people just sending cheers to get a bigger piece of the pie to win the prize, right? That is a lot of work just to have a bigger piece of the pie, right? So I would agree. It needs to be supported in an intentional, authentic way. And for some people, that's not part of who they are, right? They may never give recognition. You definitely don't want to make it mandatory, but I think having different ways to give recognition is important because then for people that want to give it that way, have an option, A, B, or C, right? Or whatever that is. So having that layering effect. And then to Carol's point, monitoring it from above, showing that coming down and that support, I think will help calm the mandatory and make it more about really the gratitude and the intent behind it. Oh, Sandra, this is from Sandra Carol. My company also uses ADT. Was the process of capturing small delights a drawn out project to accomplish?
No, it was actually really simple. We just added an additional questions to the personal profile. And in bonus, we will, in the slide deck, we will include some of the questions that we're using in our small delights. And it was just, we determined questions as a people team, and we were able to just implement it and get great information from people. But it was very, very simple to add. And it was also very simple to add. We used it previously in Zenefits too. So yeah.
Yeah, easy. And as someone that took it, it probably took me, 2 minutes to fill out. And I didn't fill out everything because, as Carol mentioned, I am also not a coffee drinker. So I don't want Starbucks cards or others. So I could just leave those blank. So it does give some flexibility there. Yeah. Okay, do you have survey questions that we can use to learn from the staff what kind of recognition they would like or prefer?
Yeah, that's just like we'll have that as the bonus slides. We'll give you all the questions that we used at Limeade, to give you some jumping off points, and you can pick and choose what works best for your organization.
Yeah, so definitely when you get that email, check out the deck. They'll be at the very end, all that great bonus material. How do we teach gift giving to others? We have, and this is from Kim, we have some leaders who are amazing and do perfect small delight type things, but we have others who gift giving or authentic words of affirmation just aren't their strength.
It's a good question. It is hard to teach gift giving, but I think it's a matter of just building into a practice. I have to set a reminder weekly, like, hey, you should send some cheers, because when you send cheers, you feel better about your day. Like, I know I feel better when I send cheers to others. I'm like, because I'm pointing out all the amazing things people are doing. So I think just the best way to teach people is to just get them to practice it. And then, it might not be their strength, but everyone has their superpowers, and that's why we work together in a team, and you can figure it out. Do you have anything?
Yeah, I think for this, probably put a little bit of structure in place for these individuals that aren't as creative or as, for them, they might, this is not an important factor, right? It is not their love language. It is not their core value of being recognized. So it's going to be a stretch for them to have to then do it for someone else. But I think if you can have some different options already created, some ideas for them, so they know, oh, hey, in this instance, I need to recognize them at the beginning of the meeting, or hey, I do need to send something, I think would help them learn how to do it more regularly. So if we don't have some structure in place, definitely something, reach out and maybe we can help create that. But I think that would be a great way to help others become more involved. Thank you, Kim. Lucinda asks, do you need dedicated staff that can lead, organize the recognition program, and how many staff per number of employees is needed? Man, that's a great question too.
Yeah, I think there really is no like magic number or anything. I think at Limeade, our recognition program is mainly ran by our people team, our HR team. And our HR team, that's kind of my role, is to run that. But it's also championed by our champion network. We have a champion network of about, we have like 25 plus champions on our champion network who help champion our internal programs. And that's what Bree and I worked on our social connection subcommittee team on just finding ways to do more recognition, to do more for employees. And so that one's completely open to our company, and anyone that wants to be a champion can apply to be a champion for a 1 year 1 year term, and then they help in whatever area they feel feel strongest in. So while it can be managed by one person, you could easily scale it up to as many people as are interested. Anything else, Bree, on that one?
Yeah, I love that. No, I think that's all good. You know, it depends on your team and size, right? And what does that environment look like if everyone's remote or not, and right, how they lead into your HR or people's team, right? I think it is good to have some sort of lead in that way to help with communication, to help with reminders, right? If it's coming from an overall. But then from there, you know, we had a good times crew that helped with recognition. So I do then think it's about finding those individuals that this speaks to them and creating a team, creating a committee to help lead some of these efforts, right? Because then that helps get people involved. You know, Carol sends out great communication. I love hearing that, but when we get other input as well, you're like, oh, okay, now we're kind of seeing this from different sides. It's not just from one leader or just from one person. So I think it can be a mixed bag, just like you said. Yeah. Hopefully that helps, Lucinda. Thank you. And just a couple more questions. We appreciate these. Keep them coming. If we don't have a recognition program today, what's a good first step to start establishing one? This is from an anonymous comment. Thank you.
I think first is just determining what level you want to start your recognition program in. Like, you know, at the organizational level, having just some organizational awards, or just starting like grassroots, finding ways to do cheers for each other, whether it's in your communications with Teams or Slack or other ways that you communicate as a team. I think start small, keep it simple. This should not be super complicated. It shouldn't cost a ton of money. It should be really just like effortless. And it can be as tiny as just a few, you know, a quick handwritten note, a post-it note on someone's desk. That's a recognition program. So
I would add to lengths of service. So anniversaries, birthdays are always a great grassroots place to start. Those are always happening. Hopefully you have a couple of months. You might have some months where you don't have either one of those. But that's a great way. I think another grassroots is a spotlight. Once a month, if you have do an employee spotlight and start working through your team, right? It helps other team members start to get to know people. But it feels good when someone comes to you and says, hey, we want to highlight you, you know, and you have a set of questions that you ask. So that could be an easy list, you know, once a month, once a quarter, to do a spotlight as well. Awesome. And then another anonymous question, do you have suggestions for recognition at startups versus a company with a newsletter or huge department? We have something in place, but I'm curious on ways to implement new things.
Good question. I mean, I think it's much easier when you're a much smaller group, you know, to recognize like everybody knows everybody. I think at Limeade we're kind of medium sized, and so we're kind of in the middle of that, you know, moving through that process. But I think the personal like cheers for peers works at all levels, no matter the size of the company. But then like maybe some of the organizational things might need to be a little bit smaller or like, you know, done within departments, you know, but we work really hard not to turn ourselves into silos and be like, oh, that team does that and that team does that. So finding ways to bring it all together. Newsletters are a great way to present, you know, great wins to the whole company. We just released our newsletter yesterday. So, you know, it's always a really great way to share recognition through a communication venue, which is like your newsletter. But yeah, I think, yeah, I don't necessarily have like, this works for just startups and this works for big teams. Like I think all of these things can work at every level.
Yeah, great insight. My closing thought on it, ask your team. what would you love to see recognition? What are some ideas that you have? You know, we try to own it so much that we forget our assumptions aren't necessarily what our team needs. So ask the question, start a dialogue around it. I'm sure you have some great answers that are going to come out of that are going to spark other ideas, and things are going to grow from that. So suggestions there, but definitely we'll have some more in here. We would love to continue the conversation. Man, when you're having fun, an hour goes by so quickly.
Yes.
So again, want to recognize all of you on the call today, all of those watching or rewatching, your time and energy. We so appreciate the comments and the interaction. We hope you got some great ideas to be more impactful and intentional in recognizing your team. I am very happy to be a part of Carol's team. She inspires me every day to bring joy and gratitude to the workplace and indeed show love for what we do. So thank you, Carol. Thank you all. We hope you have a beautiful day, and cheers.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.